花びら舞うあの日のことまだ鮮明に思い出す
I first learned about my Japanese study abroad trip from my professor, Osuka Sensei, and he was telling the entire class at the end of the year, you should go to Sophia University. And basically he said it would be a really great experience. I basically decided to go on the Sophia University trip because I was done with my 2 years of the required language credits, and I decided, you know what, I've taken this language for 2 years, I might as well make it worth it. So I'm going to go to Japan and actually use the lessons that I learned. One of my first impressions was that it was the most surreal experience that you could have, because Japanese is the most foreign language you could think of, well, at least I could think of. And so you go there being like, I'm not gonna know a single thing they're saying, I'm going to be blown out of the water, completely out of my league, don't know what's gonna go on. I get to Tokyo, actually, and there are signs everywhere, and they're so English friendly, it's amazing, actually. So you go, and everyone is speaking Japanese, and there's Japanese signs everywhere, but they're all universal signs, of course. But then underneath, everything's written in English, and on the subway system, you have everything said in Japanese first, and then you have it written in English afterwards. They have maps that are written in both Japanese on one side and English on the other side, so it's actually very English friendly. So it always really depends on where you go in the country that you want to go to, because in the more city type areas, they might be more adjusted to English speaking to foreigners, but if you go to more countryside places, they might not be as, I guess, home language friendly, in this case for me, English friendly. So I guess it all just depends on where you go. So it was a bit of a culture shock, but not too much of a culture shock language-wise, because they had a lot of English signs. I did not find it that difficult to find my way around. There were, as I said earlier, lots of maps. The subway system in Japan is the most beautiful invention in the entire planet. Let me tell you, everything runs on time. It says it's going to be in the next 3 minutes. It's there in the next 3 minutes. I would go back to Japan just for the subway system, I kid you not. Communicating, though, it was a little bit difficult. True, there are a lot of English signs in Tokyo, and they are more adapted to English speakers, to foreign languages. But the thing is, it's not what you're communicating, because when you go to most places, if you don't know the language, if you know the basic words, you can get a point across, like, where is the police box? Where do I find this restaurant? Most people can get, you know, those simple sentences down. The thing about Japan, though, is the way you communicate, which is what we found more difficult, because if we wanted to ask someone, we didn't know if it would be rude to come up to them, and there are different verb forms, I guess you could say. So we didn't want to use the impolite verb form, so it was very nerve-wracking to communicate with them. And they also have very different ways of greeting people in stores. Every time you walk into a store, all the sales associates say, "Irashaimase!" So they're all saying hello. And the first few times I didn't know if I should communicate back and say hi back to them, or if I should ignore them. So it's a very different vibe for communication culture there. The Sophia summer program was actually extremely busy. We would get up at around 6 in the morning, get ready, hop on the train, be in class by around 8 o'clock, and we had 2 classes of our choice. I chose Japanese theater for my first period class, and that went from about 8 to 10, and then from 10 to 12 we had our second class, and I took Japanese language, and we had 4 hours a day of classes, and then we would get out and we'd have just about an hour to socialize with our new made friends or the friends that we traveled with, an hour for lunch, and then after that for the most part, we had a planned activity every single day, whether it be going to see a kabuki show, seeing rakugo, seeing a presentation, going to a tea ceremony, a flower arranging ceremony. There was a different activity to do every single day. So there was free time, but it was all in how you managed it, because on top of the classes, the socializing time, the time to go and do the class activities after class, we also had cultural trips where we could go to a different town with our group and explore the area, and those were also, I guess you could say they were mandatory as well. So that took up a good chunk of the day, and on top of that we have homework, so it was quite a busy day indeed. We were exhausted most of the time, I'm not gonna lie, but every single day, even if I only had 2 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep, I would just wake up like riled up and just, oh my goodness. I actually enjoyed going to classes. I know you're probably saying, what is this girl talking about? Classes are like, blah. But in a different country, for some reason, you're there for the class. That's the reason you spent so much money to go flying across an ocean. You better pick classes that you enjoy and go to them and experience them as taught by teachers from a different culture. So, yes, we were busy, but it was a fun kind of busy, and it was totally worth it. I actually found that I did have time for my own planned activities. There wasn't a lot of the time, but there were quite a few opportunities after school, usually during the lunch period, where we'd eat lunch and then I'd meet up with the friends that I had made in classes, and we'd go either town hopping, we'd go do purikura together, we'd go to bibimbap, we'd go and get, you know, a meal outside of the whole campus area, or even if it was like something small, like, oh, let's go to the Sanrio store down in the arcade area, we would do that. So yes, there was time to do outside activities, but they usually had to be small, mostly because we were tired from all the big activities we were doing, but also because we all knew that we would be doing some group activity later, so we had to get back in time. My own explorations very much differed from the planned explorations that we had, because the planned ones were more about the historical things that happened before. They were historical tea gardens, they were trips to places like Mount Fuji and other historical areas that if I didn't have a guide, I probably would never learn as much as I did. But then, in my explorations, I got to really experience the everyday life of a Japanese person, I guess you could say. Like, I would go out with my friends, explore the surrounding towns, I would train hop, and we would go and see what we could find if we got lost. Actually, I spent an entire day getting lost with my friends. We discovered a tiny little park. It was beautiful, but I couldn't even tell you what the name of it was, but I just remember we saw it, and it was just, it wasn't really a park. It was a floating garden, actually, and it was just full of lilies and this beautiful little mini temple, and it was smack gob in the center of this industrialized city. And it's like, that's what you get when you explore by yourself. You find those tiny little gems that the big picture completely misses. It was actually not hard at all for me to make friends. The way you live when you're in a foreign country is a little bit different than when you're at Seton Hall. Because when I went to Japan, we lived in a hotel together, and there were 2 people per room, and nobody's cell phone worked. So instead of, you know, the normal get-together planning where you go, oh, I'm gonna text my friend, hey, you wanna go to dinner with me? No, we didn't have that. If you were in the room, you left your door open, or you were close by so you could open the door if a friend wanted to knock. So you'd get together and you'd go to dinner together, and we basically formed a very strong friendship with the 13 or so people who went, because these were the people who came together from America. And so at first they were just acquaintances from my Japanese classes. I was close with a few, but we never really got to hang out during the school year. But once we got into Japan, we were in our own little bubble in the hotel of Americans. And so I think we all really grew and bonded together because we were foreigners. And then on top of that, classes made it also very easy to make friends, because when you go into school, you have, one, absolutely no sleep and very few filters on in the morning, I feel. So you're just ready to talk to anyone, say hello. And in the classes, I made a lot of friends from a lot of different countries. There were people from Austria, Spain, France, China, of course America as well. So I made friends from other states, I made friends from other countries, and basically after my second class was the best time to make friends, I guess, because everyone was coming from their classes and going to lunch. So you basically just ended up with whatever partner you had in class and said, hey, let's go to lunch together. I would say making friends overseas is pretty easy, as long as you open up to someone new. It was definitely easier to have friends to go exploring with on top of it. I'm not sure how I would feel exploring Japan alone. As good as the whole mapping and subway system is, I always felt more comfortable having a friend with me because we all had different ideas of where we wished to go. Some people said, oh, I want to go to Harajuku. Some people wanted to go to Asakusa. And so you would pick what activity you wanted to go to, and you would never feel scared to go and explore because you always had someone, at least one other person, who understood what you were saying. To have a friend to come around with you, I think it makes you explore even more because you don't have just your own idea of the places you want to go. You have someone else's ideas, so you go to twice as many places and you get to experience twice as many things. This experience completely changed my life. I wouldn't say very overtly. It was very subtle, but it was definitely a change. Not only was it a great and fun experience, but it also helped me solidify my plans for the future. And actually, after this program, I decided that I wanted to try doing the JET program, which is a program in which you assist teaching English in Japanese schools. And so this whole experience at Sophia University, this entire experience of just traveling to Japan for a month, has solidified my goals for my future, and for that I am thankful. What I would say to other people about study abroad is go, 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 go. If you have the opportunity, I would say definitely take it. It completely changes your perspective. You gain so many new friends, so many insights into different cultures. I personally solidified my plans for my future, which is definitely a bonus. As much as it's an amazing experience, I will say be prepared that because study abroad programs, they can be a little pricey. So I would save up for it, look for scholarships for it. Those would definitely be a good thing to look into. Once again, if you have the opportunity, do it because it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience.